Hey everybody, Mike Shope, Adam Krautwurst, the Deep End Dynasty Edition coming your way Thursday nights. We're recording Thursday morning, so it's live on tape this week. I have plans tonight. They do hinge on my being able to make my Ticketmaster account work. And holy
Good luck.
cow, is that ever the boomer zone? I am just you don't even want to know. It's bad. Tune into WGR and maybe you'll get an update on that because I've been known to flip out when it comes to this one subject. We'll get you what you came here for, though. Quarterback movement, it's been massive this week in the NFL. We'll talk about the combine and I think a good conversation about what to do with your rookie picks. We're all kind of eager for our draft, but we have to have the NFL draft first to know who's going where. Does that mean we can't do anything now? No. So we'll talk about that as well. Thanks for being with us. This is The Deep End. The short answer is that I get the tickets on my computer, but not my phone. And I'm just not making that phone call to get that fixed. I'm just not. I mean, the help screen just takes forever, and I don't know. I get to a point where I just don't want to go into the building, and I get all like angry.
I don't blame you. I definitely don't blame you there.
Yeah, can I just have a ticket, please?
Is it worth it over a Sabres game though? I mean, you don't want to get all fired up.
No, and that's how I felt the last time. I'm like, I just won't go, whatever.
Right.
But tonight it's my family and it's clients, and so I'm not gonna. That's not where I end up tonight. But I'll get you an update. So what a week! What a week in the NFL. Russell Wilson, Adam first. I mean, that did happen. He is out of Seattle, and in Denver. I mean, there's a lot to like skill position wise. How much of a boost in terms of dynasty does Russell Wilson have as you see it?
Yeah, I think he stays kind of the same. He gets a little bit of a boost. I think the weapons are very similar. Judy and Sutton to Lockett and DK Metcalf. But I think his attitude, there were some rumors that he may have checked out last year. Obviously, nobody runs the ball less than Seattle does. So coming there, Nathaniel Hackett's the head coach. Seattle had the 20th pass rate in the NFL, 56%. Denver has a whole new coaching staff, right? So they got Hackett there. For Green Bay, they threw 58% of the time. So even just those 2 percentage points can mean a lot to as far as passing volume and stuff like that. And it's all about game script too. So they're going to be in shootouts with the Chargers. They're going to be in shootouts with the Chiefs. So I like, if I had Russell Wilson on the Seahawks and I still have him, he's on the Broncos, I like that situation better. So I would not be looking to sell him. I would only be looking to hold or trade for him, but I wouldn't give up a ton for him because he's 33.
Right, I agree. It's an uptick for him. The Broncos have the personnel to do whatever they want on offense. I mean, I think they'll probably run the ball plenty because they have Williams and maybe even Gordon again, but at least Williams. I mean, he's an investment, and those receivers have all been investments. They trade Fant, and Okwebunam is somebody who's interesting in Dynasty. He might get the biggest boost from this trade with Fant out of the way. I mean, people already had Judy and had Sutton, and now it's not exactly the right time to trade for them. But, maybe trading one of those guys away is something you could do well in if people are really excited about the Wilson trade and see Sutton or Judy now on the Metcalf level, then, that might be a chance you take. There are 2 of them. It's yet to happen. I don't think you have to think like that, but I could see that being an option for you. But in terms of Wilson, if you have Wilson, good for you. I mean, this was a good development.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good development. And it's interesting too. Like I see Judy very similar to Metcalf. I'm sorry, to Lockett as far as skill set and that shorter underneath routes. And Judy, I think Judy's probably a little bit better of a prospect at least. And then people forget how good Sutton is. Sutton's he's big, deep ball, jump ball type guy. He got injured a couple of years ago. He worked his way back last year. No quarterbacks, so to speak. And Sutton was unstartable like the last 6 weeks of last season. I remember I had him on a pretty big team. I think I had him on my 3K, and I eventually just couldn't even start him because once Judy got back, Bridgewater just wasn't throwing it that way. But now, again, I think this whole team's going to be rejuvenated.
I mean, these are were two of the most frustrating NFL offenses in the league. I mean, in the league last year, both of them. Seattle played so slow, and you have Wilson who can run and as good as Metcalf and Lockett can be, and just didn't really amount to very much usually. And their pace was just incredible. Like they just kind of a relic that offense last year for what you see in the NFL now. And Denver was so maddening too, with, like you made the point about Sutton, all that talent. You had Javonte Williams. He never really got the full workload, of course, with Gordon there. And like everybody was kind of a disappointment with how that played out. So that could be very different now. And I would think that they want it to be, but still be willing to go with balance and to use Williams, who was impressive as a rookie. So that's Wilson. The Wentz trade in Dynasty, now that Wentz, probably, Adam, is going to play. Before this trade, it felt like Indianapolis wanted to be out of him, but could they trade him? Would there be another team that wanted to take that chance? And if you had Carson Wentz in Dynasty, what could you do? You weren't going to, you'd have to give him away, and there's no point in doing that. So I think if you have a hole, and you might, because of all these changes that we're in the middle of at the position, then picking up Wentz, it's something now we know we have more certainty on him, so it's not something you can just do for free. But I do feel like even though it wasn't a first-round pick, he's Washington's quarterback in 22.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's interesting. Like, it's not even about Wentz anymore. Like, who's actually starting Wentz unless they're in a super flex, right? Like, it's more about, to me, when quarterbacks change teams, it's about, what does it do for the players around them? What did it do for the players that they left? I had a lot of early Michael Pittman. So that I'm not happy about that, because they don't have, what are they going to do? They got to do something. I don't think they have a first round pick in Indy there. The quarterbacks are running thin now in free agency and the trade options. So we'll see what they do there, but Pittman might be in big trouble. But yeah, going to Washington, I think it gives them it gives Terry McLaurin and those guys a higher floor, Gibson, higher floor. And even their ceiling, I think, is a little bit higher too. It just gives them maybe some consistency of having a veteran NFL quarterback. I don't know where Wentz is mentally. That's the thing. Like, this is his third team now in 3 years. And it's just, but hopefully they clearly wanted him. They went out and they got him. And I think I like this for Terry McLaurin for sure. And if you have McLaurin, I think you definitely hold him still. And maybe you can even trade for McLaurin. He would be a trade target for me now, as long as people aren't asking too much for him. And I know you love Diami Brown. How do you feel about this?
I forgot about Brown. I'm more ready to talk about Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
But, Brown is going into year 2, and who knows what's behind rookies who just really don't produce at all, have their coaching staff lost faith in them or whatever. But there's still a little bit of a pulse there, I think. I like this maybe a little more than you do for the Washington receivers. And this is only our second episode, Deep End Dynasty. But if we were on, say, like 4 or 5 weeks ago and got to Washington, I would have, and I've acted this way, I would have been pushing for trading for those guys, McLaurin, because right now that unknown worries the typical dynasty player, fantasy player. You just don't know. And you have that with several teams. What you do know is that McLaurin really is good. And also that Washington was going to do something. It's all pretty recent, but the report that they made a big offer for Wilson, who they might have if Wilson had been willing to play for them. That probably gets done because it sounded like maybe a better offer. So they were, looking hard at that position, and that was likely to be good for those guys. There's so much negativity about Wentz that you still might be in the same place as you kind of said, where McLaurin and I think Samuel. I've been drafting Samuel like everywhere in startups and in redraft, because what is that, the 14th round?
Yeah.
He's excellent. He just wasn't healthy, and
it's not a different coaching staff, but it's a coaching staff that went out and got him and even had him in Carolina.
Yep.
So I still think that's a smart idea. It's cheaper than last year. Wentz, I mean, there are big plays. I mean, Indianapolis's passing offense wasn't much. Taylor was so good. So you don't have evidence really there, but Wentz is kind of reckless, and that can mean some potentially big days or, big scores in fantasy. And McLaurin and maybe also Samuel in a different way are capable. So I'm a buy there depending. I'm not going to go crazy. It's not Denver, but I'd be interested in any of those guys, really, Washington. And so then we have, unless you have more in Washington?
No, I'm good.
All right. So no trades. Aaron Rodgers didn't move. I mean, that's something that didn't happen, but can be talked about in the same kind of category. Same thing kind of happened last year with Devontae Adams. There was a minute there where or more than a minute, you didn't know what was going to happen with Rodgers, and Adams slipped a little bit, but then as soon as it got resolved, went right back up and had another massive year. So there was a little bit of a moment here in the last couple of weeks where what's going to happen. Now it looks like we know, and Adams is, I mean, how high for you? Dynasty is a different question than redraft, but Adams goes right back to where he was.
Yeah, Adams goes right back to where he was. Dynasty, yeah. I mean, he's tied to, well, he hasn't signed a big contract yet. Have they even franchised him yet?
Yes.
They have. Okay. Yep. So he's going to be there this season. Great. I can't see him. I mean, Aaron Rodgers loved him. There's a story about how Aaron Rodgers called him like one day to tell him he's the best football player that he's ever played with. And right. I think those two guys have a great rapport. I think they understand that their success is really tied to each other. Adams needs Rodgers probably a little bit more than Rodgers needs Adams, but I can't see Adams going anywhere. So in Dynasty, if you can find a team that or an owner that has Adams that is nervous about the next 3 or 4 years, you can get him. Like, he's going to be a top 5 fantasy receiver for the next 3 to 4 years. So he's a guy that if you think there's any doubt in the owner's mind, go out and snag him for sure.
With Rodgers, he's 39 in December, and I'm sort of two minds about him. Like, they gave him the massive contract. Is it likely that he's still playing at the MVP level throughout those 4 years? No. On one hand, Brady's success can make people a little bit more casual when it comes to quarterback age and just, hey, whatever. We've seen Brady play into his mid-40s and successfully, so that should mean anybody can do it. I'm not sure that is exactly how I'd want to look at it, but I do think as a dynasty player, you want to be, if you're good, you want to check in on the Rodgers owner, because especially in Superflex, because if there's one big year there or two, even better, then you might find somebody who wants to get younger. And there are so many young quarterbacks that you could, pivot to that might be a play. So if you have a good roster in Superflex, but don't have quite quarterback where you want it, I'd be willing to go after Rodgers and, hope to get maybe 3 years out of it. But even if I get one, and then in 23, there's a decline. Okay. I mean, you either want to win or back up, you don't want to get stuck in the middle. So going after Rodgers is something I'd be open to doing. And one more, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say too, especially with a guy like Rodgers, like, he's going to know, he is the type, he's not going to go out there and embarrass himself. That's my opinion. Like, he's going to know when he can't sling it anymore. So I don't even think there's going to be a year like Ben Roethlisberger. We've known for 2 years that the guy just can't throw. Like, we can see it. You don't think he knew it? Everyone's talking about it. Like, Rodgers, there's nothing. Brady, no one was saying a word about it. He was still slinging it. Rodgers is still slinging it. So even if he comes back and he's 80% of what he was, you'll get that for 1 year, and then I think he'll leave. But he looks fine. Quarterbacks don't get hit like they used to. Players learn more about taking care of their bodies. I mean, Joe Theismann or Joe Namath was, smoking cigarettes on the sidelines of the Super Bowl. Like, it's a whole different world now. These guys take care of themselves. And if you're not getting hit, like running backs, they retire at 28 because they get in a car accident every game. If you're a quarterback and you're not getting hit for 15, 20 years, you can play if you still want to play. So I'm sticking with Rodgers. Rodgers to me is the mental thing. Like, does he even care? Like, does he want to go through it. Physically, he looks great. So,
yeah, a comparison between say Rodgers and like Justin Fields or Trey Lance, rookies from last year, or Lawrence, you've got 15, 16 years in age difference. Ideally, you want that to line up in your league where the team with the young quarterback is building and the team with the MVP is ready to win. It doesn't always just work out like that. And, who's to say that Fields won't outperform Rodgers this year? He certainly could, but you might be able to find that trade. And it's worth checking. One more quarterback on my mind is Desean Watson. So, Again, we're taping today. I doubt there's news on him today before we put this up tonight. There could be, but tomorrow, Adam, is a big day in the legal process for Watson. There was a report yesterday that Pittsburgh is ready to go after him. I mean, these teams have a monumental decision to make on him with all the baggage, but then also so much more upside than a Carson Wentz who got traded. I mean, sky's the limit on the field. So I would, he's going to play. I would expect there to be a trade. I would expect settlements and resolution and the suspension and all of that to come with respect to Watson, but probably he's on the field this season. And as long as you can stomach it, because some people just won't want to, just like in real football, some teams, go get Desean Watson, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we need is Watson what the AFC can't handle anymore. Okay. I mean, I know he's in the AFC now, but the Texans stink. Like if he goes to Pittsburgh, oh man, that's going to be brutal. And that's what Pittsburgh and fantasy owners have to ask themselves. Is Desean Watson going to play again? Maybe even not this year, but maybe he has to sit out maybe he's suspended this year. Like if you're a Steelers fan or you're a fantasy dynasty guy, like if the Steelers give up 2 or 3 first-round picks for this guy and he sits a year, like, so you stink for a year. Now you have a top 5 pick and Desean Watson coming in 2023. Like the Steelers fans will take that. Dynasty players will take that. Like obviously, dynasty players might not get a top 5 pick, but you should see what I mean. I think it's totally worth it for an NFL team, totally worth it. Like you said, if you can stomach it for a dynasty team. And right now would be the time today or tomorrow morning or something to go. This is where Watson will probably be at his cheapest if you're looking to do that. I'm more inclined to take a shot at him in Dynasty than I am in redraft, because in redraft, he might not play this year and then he's useless to me. But in Dynasty, if you go out and get a guy like Desean Watson, I wonder what the price is for something like him right now, in a super flex draft. I think tomorrow's a big day for him, and we'll see. I hope somebody takes a shot on him because he's so talented, and we'll see. We'll see.
Well, in dynasty startups, you don't have to go into the first round for Desean Watson, but by the weekend you might. So
exactly,
that kind of depends on when your draft is. I mean, Superflex, it's such a different conversation. In Superflex, having one of those guys, Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Jackson, having one of those guys is such an advantage. And if you don't, you're just always chasing. Maybe Lance and Fields turn into that. Watson is that if he's playing. It's just a matter of whether he's playing, and eventually he will be. So you got to have room for him. Deep enough rosters. Most dynasty formats have pretty deep rosters, so you should be able to have room for him. And he's not on our list, Adam, but we should probably mention Calvin Ridley. And this might be sort of an opportunity, the right opportunity to do that, because it's a little bit the same conversation. Do you have a thought on whether or not, like, what you would do with Ridley? I don't have some of these other guys like Wentz, but I've got plenty of Calvin Ridley, and like minutes after, good for the guy. I mean, it could be annoying. Good for the guy who did it. Minutes after that news the other day, here comes a trade offer for Calvin Ridley. Like somebody in your league will take him if you don't want the hassle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Calvin Ridley, my buddy and I have a co-owned dynasty team, and he traded Ridley away maybe 2 weeks ago for a second round pick. And I was like, I mean, I thought we could have done, I mean, we probably could have done better than that and all that for Ridley. And I still think we could have done better for Ridley at the time. But he's texting me immediately. I told you, blah, 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 rubbing it in my face. And I'm thrilled now to have, a second round pick this year for him, obviously. But who knows? I mean, maybe, if people think Ridley's going to be back in a year, which he probably will be, would you rather have a second round dynasty pick this year? I don't know. We'll see what team Calvin Ridley ends up on. But that situation's a little bit goofy. But I think it depends on what type of team you have too. Like if your team's loaded, and you can afford to sit on Calvin Ridley for a year, I would rather have Calvin Ridley than a second round pick this year, than a second round rookie pick this year. Because I mean, what do you have, a 30% chance that guy's going to pan out to even be anything, and then even less than that he's going to be Calvin Ridley. So, I still like holding Ridley. And if you've got room on your bench, man, go trade for him. But I'm not trading him now because you're not going to get anything for him.
I think I might be more the type to want to trade Ridley away, maybe with a draft pick for a starting receiver right now that, isn't going to be top 10 or anything like that probably, but maybe a number 2 receiver on a decent team. That's a trade that sort of makes sense to me. I don't think Ridley has to be a star again in the league. We don't know what he was dealing with last year to lead to his leaving the Falcons. Then you have this, and he'll be 28 before he plays again in the league. That's not so young. So if somebody's what you described just then as having the right appetite for him and the right kind of team where just sort of build for the future in a certain way. It's almost like a draft pick with Ridley. Yep. Then, yep. Okay. I mean, I don't feel as confident that he is who we thought he was when we drafted him, second round last year. You and I, we do that in Pros versus Joes, I think. Was that 212 or 3-1? Picked Ridley and Aaron Jones.
Yes.
So Is he ever that again? There's just, with receivers, you've got all this influx of rookies, Adam. I mean, last year's guys, the year before, this year, this class doesn't get a lot of respect, but you have 5 or 6 different receivers who might be the first one picked. And who knows? I mean, you see it getting younger all the time. What does that mean for Ridley? I probably would consider myself more pessimistic than the average player.
Sure.
So did the combine clear up what the top of the NFL draft will look like? No, I mean, the top of the NFL draft is not going to be skill position players mostly anyway. It was interesting. I mean, everybody's really fast now from this combine.
That's wild.
Yeah. Who are a couple of the rookies that you sort of are more focused on post combine?
Well, yeah, that was the first thing I noticed too. Like everyone's so fat, and then the stopwatches, the lasers don't work anymore. Like, well, don't tell me that. Like if I'm going to get LASIK surgery, I don't want to know that the lasers just stop working all of a sudden. But yeah, everybody's really fast now. Bizarre, crazy stuff. I mean, you had a guy like Treylon Burks ran a 4.5 40, and it seemed slow because everyone else is blazing. But yeah, so in this year specifically in fantasy, you're looking for the running backs and the receivers. Super flex, I guess you look at the quarterbacks, but this year isn't really a quarterback draft. I mean, they're talking about the number 1 quarterback this year being taken 10th overall, which is pretty low considering. So I was focusing more on the running backs and receivers, and I think one of the winners is Breece Hall. I mean, he was a guy that was probably going to be the number 1 running back taken, probably the number 1 running back taken in dynasty drafts too. He ended up with the second best speed score, and at 217 pounds, which is, he's getting comped in the size speed range to a guy like, Jonathan Taylor. He's not Jonathan Taylor. In my opinion, I think Taylor looked a little bit more explosive in college, but it also has size comps to Rashad Penny and Delvin Cook, 2 guys that have, Penny's been successful when healthy. Cook, is also gets injured a lot too, but you can see that talent there. So Breece Hall is a guy that I really was interested in, and I think he won.
Yeah, I agree. He is probably the best running back out there. Running back is so much a function of situation. So when they get into the league, who knows how it will stack up. And I want to make a point about that later. But I think if I'm drafting
today, he's my 101 in a rookie draft. The receivers, much more spread out, it seems. People will say the same about running backs, whether it's Walker, but Hall, I think, is the best, the perfect body for the position. And we'll see if he gets that first round stamp. I mean, that's a big one with Najee Harris last year or Josh Jacobs in the past. If they get that first round stamp, people will go all in. Edward Selaire, barely. I mean, the last pick of the first round.
Barely.
As soon as that happened, he was 101. And, looking back, I'm thinking about that for later.
Right.
Burks, I think, fine. Garrett Wilson, fine. You've got a pretty good list of wide receivers, interesting options.
Yeah, interesting too about the fun thing about running backs when they get drafted high in the NFL. It's like they're usually going now in the late 20s if they're getting drafted at all in the first round, and so they usually end up on a really good team, which is why I think we all get excited about the prospects of these guys. Another quick running back that I liked was Kenny Walker. I liked him going in, good speed score, did a good job pass catching. People were worried about that coming out of college. And a loser for running backs is Kyren Williams. Had the worst speed score in the class. I think everybody kind of knows that. He ran a 4.65 at 194 pounds. You cannot do that at the running back position. Treylon Burks. Yeah, I liked him. I heard you guys talking about him last week too, or at least Bulldog was on the show. 6'2", 225. He ran a 4.5 40, which is fine for 6'2", 225. I think it gets overlooked because people, like you said, were flying. I think he played 70% of his snaps came out of the slot the last 2 years. So I think he's just a big bodied slot. Reminds me a lot of AJ Brown when he plays. He looks a lot like AJ Brown. So I think if a team drafts him to put him in the slot, I think that's the right thing to do. And another receiver that I really like is Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Looks great. Had 11 foot 4 inch broad jump. He's 6'4", ran a 4.36. He cops physically to DJ Chark coming out. So I love Chark coming out too, and we'll see what he can do this year again. But yeah, those were some of the guys I was looking at.
Yeah, I get excited sometimes for those FCS guys like Watson.
Yeah,
Pierre Strong at South Dakota State is another one where.
Yep.
In terms of dynasty, like I'll try that. I'll try the guys who don't have. They didn't. I mean, Williams went to Notre Dame, right? Who ran the slow time?
Yes. Yeah.
And South Dakota State, North Dakota State. Okay, those can be fine pros. So if there's some discount on them in dynasty because they did not play at the highest level, I would take it in general.
Yeah, and I think one of the receivers that I think lost was Wan'Dale Robinson. People were excited to kind of see him. He's explosive, but he only ran low 4.4s. I think he ran a 4.44 40, but he's five. He measured at 5'8", and the only 5'8" receiver to really ever hit is Tyreek Hill. So unless you want to place your bets on him being the next Tyreek Hill, who was paired with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and all that stuff. And by the way, Tyreek Hill didn't really break out until he learned to run routes. I mean, that was kind of the thing coming out on him and then he learned how to do that. And he was sensational. So I'm not going to bet on a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson because, there's only one guy to ever do it. So and I'm sick of everyone comping every small, fast guy to Tyreek Hill because they're just not, they're not him. So yeah, that was the only real loser at the receiver position that I saw of significance up at the top.
I appreciate your checking yourself on only 4.5. I mean,
that's right.
It's still pretty fast. I appreciate that. You and I are not
pretty
running
fast.
4.5s, or I'm not. And you're talking about LASIK. Is LASIK
right.
on the table? I mean, the glasses are signature elements. That's the sort of our brand. Have you ever seen bigger glasses with two guys together? No. So I'm not sure we have to talk about that off air if we're making that move. All right. So one thing I wanted to say today and get your opinion on is rookie picks. So the NFL draft is at the very end of April. Today is March 10th. What do we do for the next 6 weeks? Is the answer necessarily nothing? It can't be. We can't just say nothing. This is supposed to be fun. Dynasty is great because it's year round. I'm not
taking March off. I want to be active and try to find good deals. It's just fun to do that anyway. And I think so. I mentioned Edwards-Helaire a minute ago, and that's a pretty interesting example of, we're talking 2 years ago now, how conversations like the one we just had after the combine, talking about college careers, would have sounded for those running backs, and then how it played out in most dynasty rookie drafts, which would have been post NFL draft after he was picked in the first round by Kansas City. Like, he is probably the 6th running back in that class right now in terms of dynasty value. And
Yes.
not literally everybody, but almost everybody, as soon as he went to Kansas City, he's the guy you have to take first. I mean, he was 101 in those rookie drafts almost always. And then
Yeah.
who else who are we talking about? Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Akers, Gibson eventually. Like, where does Edwards-Helaire rank? He might rank last on that list. So, Adam, does that not teach a lesson about the players versus the situations, not just making every decision hinge on the situation, and being willing to trust the player, place your bets on the guys without knowing where they're going. And then if you think of it that way, well, I've got the, rookie pick X, say 4 in the first round. I'm picking 4th in the first round, but who knows where anybody's going. It'll look very different after the draft. Maybe I just want to wait. I don't think you have to wait. I think you could move up or down depending, using this principle that it's the player, and take the player for what he is, and place your bets accordingly. I don't think, finding out, the point is finding out where they're going and then measuring that situation or what we think it is, that might be overrated.
Yeah, I think that's one specific example. I just remember with the CEH, I really liked him coming out of college, and I was like, oh, he's a guy in rookie drafts that I think I'm going to steal in the mid-first round because I really like him. And then to see the Chiefs take him the end of the first round, I was like, oh man, well, there goes any value. So now I ended up getting sucked into taking him because I really liked him. I didn't like him better than the other guys, but like you said, landing spot. And it's always like, man, what if the Chiefs took any of those other running backs over CEH? How dominant could they be? But yeah, I still think landing spot plays a part. I still think, and again, if you have the 101, let's say in the CEH scenario, you had the 101, and you see CEH is the consensus 101, and you don't love him, you don't like him, you don't think he is, that's the fun thing about Dynasty Leagues. You can trade back and go get your Cam Akers, trade back and go get your Swift or your Dobbins, and then pick up some picks. You're not in Dynasty, you're not forced into taking anybody because you can always trade back, or you can always trade up. So to me, location and running back situation on that team is a very important thing, because I mean, look at Devin Singletary for example. Devin Singletary isn't very good, but at the end of the year, he was getting all the touches, all the running back touches. So he was worth it. If you get a running back that's getting all the touches for that team, that's almost as important than how talented the running back actually is, So I think that the perfect harmony. Sometimes I think you had the year where it was Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette and Joe Mixon, and they all came out and they were all the number 1 running backs on their teams. And I remember looking ahead to that draft going, man, I need to start picking up picks for that draft a year ahead of time because there's 3 stud running backs coming out. They're all going to be drafted highly. The teams are going to covet them. And I think I was planning on picking up picks for that year. This year, I didn't see the same type of talent. Now it's not that hard to do. You just kind of Google, mock draft for the NFL and see, oh, look, there's not one running back in the first round. So it's not going to be a really big running back year. So, but as far as running back picks, what are they? I'm sorry, rookie picks. What are they worth? I think it depends. Like right now, it's funny. Right now, I'm looking at all my dynasty teams going, oh, what picks do I have? I'm like, oh, I really don't have that many teams with first round picks. I wish I had some. But then it's like when I'm trading them away, I'm like, I don't really care about these. Who knows what these players are going to turn into. So I think this time of year, you want rookie picks because you want to dig in and do all the research. But I think realistically, I would rather have a sure bet player that I've already seen than an actual rookie pick.
Well, I'll just say again with the Edwards Helaire example, tell me if this doesn't make sense. If you in that example, thinking about how that played out, the draft happens and everybody is hot for CEH. What was the play? Probably trading down. If you were willing to do that, you have to be willing to trade down from 101. It felt like a big advantage. But if you subscribe to this principle that you're really more about the players than the situations, or you want to weigh that differently, then I think the inverse would be to trade up now. Not every draft is the same in this way. There might not be clear cut, or there might not be sort of a situation that stands out like Najee Harris did, being picked in the first round. But I think maybe now the person at 101 kind of sees 6-7 guys as about the same. And I mean, they're counting on the draft to tell them what to do.
Right.
And so if I'm in that group too, it might be pretty cheap to move up to the top. And then if it happens that the guy I want, say if we think Breece Hall is a cut above, if it happens that he gets a team where like the Dolphins or something where you would expect him to play all the time, then you've really scored. And if it's not that, and you have a seemingly third or fourth or fifth ranked guy goes to the perfect situation in the first round and the team just pushes in on him, then you come back out. And so I think right now, if that logic holds up, I feel like there is a point there about moving up, and then of course you'd be willing to move back. And somebody in your league goes, "Why did you do that?" And you just tell them, "Because I am a wizard." And
that's right. Yeah.
It's 5D chess.
Yeah. If you're looking to trade up, it's definitely cheaper now to go ahead and trade up for sure. So yeah, if that's something that you're looking for, and if you get the perfect scenario, like I think that could totally work out. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see if they land in the right spots. And I'm looking forward to the NFL draft. I'm looking forward to where Breece Hall lands specifically. I have the second pick in a dynasty draft, Mike, and I'm wondering, talking to you right now, should I go ahead and make the call to get up to number 1, just in case Breece Hall lands on the Dolphins? You know what I mean?
What should you be willing to give up? Like, what's the price to go from 2 to 1?
I don't know. I'd give up maybe
not much.
Not much. I'd give up like a second to move from 2 to 1. If I have any of those left.
I think that's a pretty good offer. I think that's a pretty good offer.
Well, I'm going to tell the guy you said that when I send the offer.
It depends on the attitude of the person holding one. Like they might be just like, let me just see what happens in the draft.
Yeah.
So that's how it always is, what would it take to get you to do this right now?
Yeah.
And you can't hurt to ask.
That's
There is a limit to how much asking you want to do. I think, there are style points here. There's form to consider. And over the course of the off season, it's one of my favorite topics, just like the art of the trade and when does it sort of cross over into being annoying? This kinds of thing. We'll try to help with that. It's just our opinions, but it's something I'm always kind of eager to talk about. All right. So I am off to a baseball draft weekend out of state.
Like a fantasy baseball draft?
Saturday and Sunday, AL, NL, or NL and AL. It's the other order, but still.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. You guys counting on a season, huh?
No. Not necessarily, but it's a great weekend every year.
Yep.
We get together in Philadelphia for this weekend every year, and hopefully they play. But we've missed it the last couple of years due to the world, and so everybody's excited to get back there. It'll be our best turnout ever, I think.
That's right. Hopefully, none of the spouses know that there's no baseball yet. They're like, wait a minute, you guys are drafted. There's no baseball. What's going on here?
Yeah. Well. Yeah, it could turn out badly, but it's still a fun time. It's still a fun time. So when I see you again Tuesday night for the deep end next week, I'll be back from that, and we'll get into some more high stakes topics, and maybe there'll be a lot more news between now and then.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Mike Shope with Adam Krautwurst. Look us up anytime. We'll be happy to answer questions if you have any. We go Tuesday nights with more of a high stakes focus, the original Deep End brand concept. And then new this year is our Thursday night Dynasty show. So hope you like that too. Thanks for watching tonight, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.